Hey, joining me now is the governor of Ohio and someone who represented the 12th District in Ohio for many years, more than a decade, almost 2 decades. John Kasich. Governor Kasich, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Always good to be with you, Chuck.
So let me just start with what happened on Tuesday in a simple phrase, a simple question here. Was it a good night for Republicans in Columbus or a bad one?
Well, it wasn't a good night because this is a district that you should be winning by, overwhelming numbers. Like, the last guy won by, 17 points, something like this. And so what you had is I think, a message from the voters to the Republicans that you got to stop the chaos and you got to get more in tune and stop alienating people and try to figure out how do families do better. I mean, you can't be talking about being in a fight here where maybe people could lose their health care if they have a pre-existing condition, or this business of separating children from their mothers and fathers at the border, or these tariffs that are just beginning to frighten a number of people in business. These kinds of messages, plus the overall chaos here, the chaos overseas. Chuck, people just want the government to do its job to improve the situation for them, not to be on the front page and creating a chaotic environment all the time. They don't want that.
Look, it did seem as if the candidate there, Troy Balderson, he's still in the lead. We still have these provisional ballots. So the assumption for now is that we assume his lead will hold. But it seems as if if you're a Republican in one of these sort of swingish districts, you have to pick your poison. The president's base gets animated by the president, but that turns off that moderate suburban Republican voter, yet what it takes to win over that voter might turn off the Trump voter. How do you strike this balance?
Well, first of all, it was amazing. Both candidates were kind of using me in a way to try to appeal
to that voter. Yes, they were.
It was really, really interesting. But, Chuck, look, as we have discussed in the past, running for office is not about how much do you put in each test tube. When you run for office, you better have a vision, you better have ideas, you better have strength, and you ought to project as a leader. See, I believe that in most cases, the specific issues are not what matters that much. What matters, are you connecting with them, and are you showing them that you are capable of leading, of making choices, and not just following the herd? Because I tell you, Chuck, I've been around long enough. You do this in politics, put your finger in the air, and you'll have a lousy career. You will not be successful. So lead. And if you win, you'll be independent. And if you lose, your life's probably going to be better. So here's the thing. You don't need to pick one side or the other. There are things the president does that people will say that's good. But why not say when he does something I don't agree with, for example, tariffs, or whether it's family separation, I'm going to fight him. I mean, that's what people want.
I want to get your reaction to something that Mark Leibovich has written in this morning's New York Times Magazine. It's a profile interview of Paul Ryan. But this is what he writes, Governor. Are Republican leaders so unwilling to condemn Trump because their voters support him so vigorously? Or do these voters support Trump so vigorously because so few Republican leaders have dared to condemn his action? Chicken, meat, egg. And it was, look, this was about Paul, this has been, Speaker Ryan has been asked to speak out, and he has walked a quieter line than you have, for instance. Do you think that's the issue, that basically not enough people are making a case essentially against the president inside the Republican tent?
I don't think it's so much making a case against the president. It's making a case for what you believe in. The Republican Party has never been for protectionism. The Republican Party doesn't support a notion that families shouldn't be held together. The Republican Party never supported the notion that we should ring up debt and put our kids in so much in debt by doing things that are not responsible. The Republican Party has never believed that we should walk away from our allies who have helped us keep the peace since World War II. These positions they don't even resemble the Republican Party.
Right, but right now only President Trump is making that case. There are not many people making the other case, Chuck, here in Washington.
The other thing that I don't like, the reason why I did not go to our convention and support Donald Trump as president, is I'm not for a divider. And I'm not for people who say the reason you don't have something is because somebody else took your stuff. That's called victimization. I don't believe in that. Do people have problems in our country? Of course they do. But we ought to work to lift them. And look, Chuck, use Ohio as a case in point. I won 86 out of 88 counties when I ran for re-election. I expanded Medicaid. I never bashed Barack Obama the whole time I ran. I won 86 out of 88. That's like unheard of. And the fact is today, if you do a survey of the people in this state, they're very optimistic about the future. And I'll tell you why that is. Not only did we help people who were at the top, but if you're disabled, if you're a minority, we're going to help you. Everybody needs to win from the top to the bottom. And our party is not, they're not saying that. Now, the Democrats, they did a little bit better with this candidate. He wasn't a great candidate. But you know from studying it, he was pretty moderate. He was, sort of center left, okay? Center left, center right, that's where the country is. And now, it's interesting, Chuck, isn't it?
Do you think there's a constituent? Well, it's interesting you've said that. You tease this out, and some people hear you say that and they think, John Kasich wants to run for president. The question is, does he want to do it as a Republican and fight inside the party and remake it, or does he want to do it as an independent and see if he can essentially put together the coalition you just described?
Well, Chuck, I'm a Republican, and the fact is that the Republican candidate for Congress here really called and pleaded with me to do more to help him. No, I think that when they look at the formula for success, you not only have success electorally, but when you're helping people to rise, you feel good about yourself. I mean,
You're punting my 2020 question a little bit, though.
Chuck, I don't know what I'm doing. You know that. What I'm doing now is, look, I'm staying alive. I'm speaking out. But every time I say anything or observe something, people want to say, oh, well, that's because he's running for president.
Right.
I really don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. I don't know. But here's what I do know. My job as a human being, ultimately, is to serve the Lord. And if I'm helping people to realize their God-given purpose and destiny, then I'm striking 10, and that's good.
Well, I want to put up something that Henry Olsen in National Review wrote this week about your he calls it John Kasich's 2020 dream. He's too Republican for disaffected Democrats and too experienced for voters who want radical change. And then he goes on to note you lost 2 bids for office, and he thinks the third wouldn't end differently. But I'm curious about that first one. Are you too Republican for those centrist Democrats, and are you too experienced for the times?
I don't know, Chuck, what the mood is. What I know is what's true today is not true a couple hours from now. That what's on your show now is going to probably be old news in like 2 hours.
Thanks a lot.
You can't predict. You cannot predict where this country is going, where the mood is going, because everyone in the country knows that it's chaotic. They know there's something wrong with our compass, and they really want it fixed. So I don't really worry too much about any of this. I'm going to do my job, and that's all I can do.
I'm going to get your reaction very quickly. There's been some discomfort from some corners about some commentaries that have taken place on Fox News in prime time. Given you're a former Fox News host, I want to get you to react to what Laura Ingraham said this week. Take a listen to it, sir.
No nation, no society has ever changed this much, this fast. This pace of change makes societies volatile.
Because in some parts of the country, it does seem like the America that we know and love doesn't exist anymore. Massive demographic changes have been foisted upon the American people. And they're changes that none of us ever voted for, and most of us don't like.
Reaction?
She said this didn't have anything to do about race, but, and I know her a little bit. I'm not going to say that she was saying this because of race, but what I am saying is this kind of language of division is not helpful to us, Chuck. And so, look, at the end...
Do you worry, though, if you think about it, this issue with the Republican base, they talk to it. They talk to the Republican base directly. Has that made your job harder inside the Republican Party?
Chuck, I think one of the things that's happening is that people have been not everybody, but many have been increasingly unwilling to put themselves in the shoes of somebody else. Even when you think about family separation at the border, some people say, well, they had a choice. They didn't need to go there. Well, many of them had to go there to save their kids' lives, literally, okay?
Right.
So, look, Chuck, I don't want to just be doing this, some sort of religious hour here.
I understand.
But I think what's fundamentally changed our country is that many people have not come to understand what faith is, which is loving your neighbor, elevating others sometimes in front of yourself, putting yourself in other people's shoes. And when we don't do that, we lose the essence of our country. When my father and my uncle talked about the Great Depression, everybody pulled together. And what we're seeing now is people pulling apart rather than coming together. And I think that's an element of religiosity. If you're a humanist, I love you anyway because, you believe in making a better tomorrow, but we need the compass back. And I frankly believe it comes from on high. Faith, togetherness, we can do it. By the way, I'm taking my daughters, Emma and Reese. They're going one going to go to college this week, the next one in about 2 weeks.
Congrats.
We'll be empty nesters, but we're going to be happy. And just remember, if this is Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Well, I appreciate it, Governor. I was just going to say you a perfectly appropriate way on a Sunday morning to have a conversation that we just had there on spirituality. Governor, thanks for coming on, sir.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and then click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.